Have you ever picked up a snake plant because everyone promised it was impossible to kill, only to watch it slowly weaken, bend, or rot for no clear reason? If so, you're definitely not alone. Snake plants are famously resilient, but that reputation often causes people to underestimate their actual needs. Instead of dying suddenly, snake plants usually decline gradually, and almost always because of a few widespread care mistakes that seem harmless at first. Today, we're going to break down those mistakes in a clear, practical way so you can stop second-guessing yourself and finally grow a snake plant that stays upright, firm, and attractive for many years. Pay close attention, because even one small adjustment can completely change the health of your plant. 1. Overwatering. Overwatering is by far the most common and most damaging mistake snake plant owners make. Although snake plants look like typical leafy houseplants, their biology tells a very different story. These plants function much like succulents. Their thick vertical leaves act as water storage units, allowing them to survive long periods without rainfall in their natural environment. Because of this adaptation, snake plants are built to tolerate dryness, not constant moisture. When a snake plant is watered too frequently, the soil stays wet for too long. This pushes oxygen out of the root zone, creating suffocating conditions underground. Without oxygen, the roots begin to decay slowly. The most dangerous part is that this process happens out of sight. Above the soil, the plant may still appear healthy for weeks. But once visible symptoms appear, such as soft, collapsing leaves, yellowing near the base, or an unpleasant odor coming from the soil, the root system is often already severely compromised. Another reason overwatering is so destructive is that the warning signs are delayed. Many people misinterpret slow growth as a sign that the plant needs more water. In reality, snake plants naturally grow slowly, especially indoors. Adding extra water in response to slow growth only accelerates root damage. The correct watering method is simple, but it requires restraint. Snake plants should only be watered once the soil has dried out completely from top to bottom. This means the soil should be dry not just on the surface, but all the way down near the roots. In most indoor conditions, this usually means watering every 2 to 4 weeks, depending on factors like light exposure, room temperature, and humidity. During the winter months, when growth slows and evaporation decreases, watering may only be necessary once every 4 to 6 weeks. When in doubt, always wait. Snake plants handle dryness extremely well and bounce back quickly from mild dehydration. Overwatering, however, can permanently damage the roots in a very short time. A healthy snake plant would always prefer an extra week of dryness over sitting in wet soil for even a single day too long. 2. Choosing the wrong pot and ignoring drainage. Closely connected to overwatering is another serious mistake: using the wrong type of pot, especially containers without drainage holes. Even if you water carefully, a pot with no drainage traps excess water at the bottom, creating a hidden danger zone for the roots. Over time, this stagnant moisture leads to suffocation and rot. Snake plants absolutely need containers with drainage holes. These openings allow excess water to escape freely, preventing moisture from pooling at the base of the pot. Without drainage, water accumulates where you can't see it, turning the lower soil layers into a swamp, even if the top of the soil feels dry. The material of the pot also makes a significant difference. Terracotta pots are especially well suited for snake plants because they are porous. They allow moisture to evaporate through the sides, helping the soil dry faster and reducing the risk of rot. Plastic and glazed ceramic pots can still work, but they retain moisture much longer and require much stricter watering control. Another common mistake is placing a pot with drainage holes inside a decorative outer container and forgetting to remove excess water. If water collects in the outer pot or tray, the roots end up sitting in standing water, completely defeating the purpose of drainage. After watering, always empty saucers and decorative containers. Pot size is just as critical as drainage. Snake plants actually prefer to be slightly root-bound. When placed in oversized pots, the extra soil holds moisture longer, increasing the risk of root rot. Large pots also dry unevenly, especially in low-light environments. The ideal container is only slightly larger than the root ball. This allows the roots to fill the space efficiently, ensures even drying, and promotes healthy growth. A snug fit encourages stability and reduces moisture-related problems. By selecting the correct pot with proper drainage and an appropriate size, You create a strong foundation for your snake plant's health. Even perfect watering habits cannot compensate for a poorly chosen container. But the right pot can protect your plant from many of the most common care mistakes. 3. Incorrect soil. Mix using the wrong soil is one of the most damaging mistakes you can make with a snake plant. And it's especially dangerous because it often goes unnoticed. Most standard houseplant soils are formulated to hold moisture, which works well for tropical plants that enjoy consistently damp conditions. Snake plants, however, are the complete opposite. Dense, moisture-retentive soil stays wet far too long, compacts easily, and restricts airflow around the roots. When oxygen can't reach the root system, the roots slowly weaken, begin to rot, and eventually fail. In their natural habitat, snake plants grow in dry, sandy, fast-draining environments where water never lingers around the roots. The soil dries quickly and the roots are constantly exposed to air. To keep a snake plant healthy indoors, your soil needs to recreate those conditions as closely as possible. Heavy, compact soil turns every watering, even an occasional one, into prolonged moisture exposure that the plant simply isn't designed to handle. The best soil choice for snake plants is a cactus or succulent mix. These blends are specifically designed to drain rapidly while still providing enough stability to anchor the roots. If you only have regular potting soil available, it must be modified. Adding ingredients such as perlite, coarse sand, pumice, or small gravel dramatically improves both drainage and aeration. A reliable guideline is this: when you water, the excess should flow through easily, and the soil should dry out within a few days rather than staying damp for weeks. Proper soil does more than prevent rot. It strengthens the entire plant. When roots receive adequate oxygen, they grow thicker, tougher, and more efficient at absorbing moisture. This allows the plant to take up exactly what it needs without sitting in excess water. Even with a perfect watering schedule, dense soil can still trap moisture and cause root problems over time. In short, soil isn't just something that holds the plant in place. It's the foundation of its health. Without the right texture, structure, and drainage, even the most careful routine won't stop a snake plant from slowly declining. 4. Too little light. Yes, snake plants still need light. Snake plants are famous for their ability to survive almost anywhere. And while that reputation isn't entirely wrong, it often leads to poor placement. Surviving and thriving are not the same thing. One of the most common misconceptions is that snake plants prefer dark corners, hallways, or dim rooms with little natural light. In low-light environments, snake plants switch into survival mode. Growth becomes extremely slow, leaves lose their rich color, and the overall structure weakens. You may notice the leaves leaning, bending, or collapsing instead of standing tall and firm. Variegated varieties are especially affected, often fading to a dull green and losing the striking patterns that make them so attractive. For strong, healthy growth, snake plants should be placed in bright, indirect light. A spot near a window with filtered sunlight is ideal. They can tolerate some direct sun, particularly soft morning light, which can enhance leaf color and encourage sturdier growth. However, harsh afternoon sun can scorch the leaves, leaving permanent brown or yellow burn marks. If your snake plant hasn't produced new growth in a long time or looks lifeless despite careful watering, insufficient light is almost always the root cause. Fertilizer won't fix a lighting issue, and adding more water will only increase the risk of rot. Simply relocating the plant to a brighter area can gradually restore its strength, color, and upright form. 5. Overfeeding or feeding at the wrong time. When it comes to fertilizing snake plants, restraint is essential. These plants are naturally slow growers and require very little feeding. Applying fertilizer too frequently or at full strength can cause more damage than benefit, leading to burned roots, weakened leaf structure, and unnatural growth patterns. Overfertilization pushes the plant to grow faster than its root system can support. This often results in tall, floppy leaves that can't remain upright. At the same time, excess fertilizer salts accumulate in the soil, damaging root tissue and disrupting the plant's ability to absorb water. Once fertilizer burn occurs, recovery is slow and sometimes incomplete. Snake plants should only be fertilized during their active growth period, typically in spring and summer. Even then, feeding once every 1 to 2 months is more than sufficient. A balanced houseplant fertilizer or a cactus-specific fertilizer diluted to half strength is ideal. Stronger concentrations are unnecessary and increase the risk of damage. Fertilizing during fall or winter should be avoided entirely. During these seasons, snake plants naturally slow their growth and enter a resting phase. Adding fertilizer at this time overwhelms the roots and often leads to stress, especially in cooler temperatures and lower light conditions. If your snake plant appears unhealthy, adding more fertilizer is almost never the solution. Most problems stem from watering mistakes, poor soil, or inadequate light, not nutrient deficiency. A well-maintained snake plant can thrive for many years with minimal feeding, proving that patience and moderation are key to long-term success. 6. Overlooking temperature and drafts. Despite their reputation as nearly indestructible houseplants, snake plants are still tropical in origin and have very specific temperature preferences. In their natural habitat, temperatures are steady, warm, and free from sudden fluctuations. Indoors, however, many snake plants quietly experience stress from cold drafts, sudden changes in temperature, or exposure to artificial airflow from air conditioners, heaters, or fans. These environmental stresses can seriously damage the plant over time. Exposure to cold air from drafty windows during winter, blasts of cool air from air conditioners in summer, or hot air from heaters can all harm snake plant tissues. Symptoms of temperature stress may include soft, translucent patches on the leaves, darkened areas, or sections of the leaves that suddenly collapse. These are not signs of disease but of temperature injury, and unfortunately, once these symptoms appear, the damage is permanent. Snake plants thrive best in a consistent environment, with temperatures ranging from 65 degrees Fahrenheit to 85 degrees Fahrenheit, 18 degrees Celsius to 29 degrees Celsius. When temperatures fall below 55 degrees Fahrenheit, 13 degrees Celsius, growth slows significantly, and prolonged exposure can cause irreversible damage to both the roots and leaves. Even brief periods of near-freezing temperatures can be fatal, especially if the soil remains damp, as cold, wet roots are extremely vulnerable. Proper placement of the plant is crucial. Avoid locations near drafty windows, doors, air vents, ceiling fans, or direct heat sources. For snake plants placed outdoors during warm months, make sure to bring them inside well before nighttime temperatures drop. A calm, stable environment with gentle airflow allows the plant to maintain firm, upright leaves, robust roots, and overall health without unnecessary stress. 7. Neglecting to clean the leaves. Another commonly overlooked aspect of snake plant care is leaf maintenance. The broad, upright, and smooth leaves of snake plants make them excellent dust collectors. Over time, dust accumulation forms a thin layer that blocks sunlight from reaching the leaf surfaces. When light is obstructed, photosynthesis slows down, which reduces energy for growth. The leaves become weaker, duller, and less vibrant. Even if your plant is in a bright room, a dusty leaf behaves as if it is in low light, compromising overall health and vigor. Cleaning your snake plant's leaves is a simple yet highly effective way to boost its health. Every few weeks, gently wipe each leaf with a soft, damp cloth. Support the leaf with one hand while cleaning to avoid bending or snapping it. This simple routine restores the plant's ability to capture light efficiently and allows the leaf pores to exchange gases freely, promoting better growth. Avoid using commercial leaf shine products. While they can make leaves appear glossy, they often clog pores and interfere with the plant's natural respiration. Plain water is sufficient to keep your leaves clean and healthy. By keeping the foliage dust-free, your snake plant will not only look more vibrant, but will also photosynthesize more efficiently, leading to stronger, healthier growth over time. 8. Ignoring early warning signs. Snake plants are remarkably resilient, but they communicate clearly when something is wrong. The issue is that many plant owners fail to recognize these early warning signals or delay taking action until it's too late. Soft, mushy leaves typically indicate overwatering or the onset of root rot. Wrinkled, curling, or folding leaves are usually signs of dehydration or extremely dry soil. Yellowing leaves can point to poor drainage, damaged roots, prolonged environmental stress, or temperature shocks. Leaning or collapsing leaves often suggest inadequate light, weak roots, or both. The biggest mistake is inaction. Some people assume that the plant will correct itself, but snake plants rely on timely interventions to recover. The good news is that if problems are addressed early, snake plants are very forgiving. Adjusting watering habits, improving light conditions, refreshing the soil, or relocating the plant to a more suitable environment can often reverse damage and restore the plant's health. Prolonged neglect, however, can turn minor issues into permanent problems. Once extensive root rot develops or leaf tissue collapses, full recovery becomes extremely difficult or even impossible. Observing subtle changes in leaf texture, color, and posture is key to long-term plant health. A healthy snake plant doesn't require constant monitoring, but it does require attentive observation. By paying attention to these early signs and acting quickly, you ensure that your snake plant continues to thrive for years, producing strong, upright leaves, purifying the air, and serving as a striking, low-maintenance centerpiece in your home. 9. Repotting. Too frequently. One of the most commonly misunderstood aspects of caring for snake plants is the repotting process. Many people believe that repotting often encourages quicker growth, but in reality, snake plants thrive on stability. Their root systems are designed to settle, anchor, and expand slowly over time, and frequent disturbance can stress the plant unnecessarily. Repotting too often interrupts this natural growth rhythm, potentially causing slow growth, weak leaves, or even root damage. Snake plants should only be repotted when there are clear signs that the plant has outgrown its current container. Indicators include roots circling the inside of the pot, roots emerging through drainage holes, or, in extreme situations, the pot itself showing signs of stress, such as cracking, bulging, or tipping over. For the majority of indoor snake plants, repotting is only necessary every 2 to 4 years, and in some cases, even less frequently. When repotting, timing, and technique are crucial. The best time to repot is during the spring or early summer, when the plant enters its active growth phase. Always select a new container that is only slightly larger than the previous one. Jumping to a much bigger pot is counterproductive because excess soil retains more moisture than the roots require, significantly increasing the risk of root rot. Handle the roots gently during repotting. Avoid breaking or disturbing them unnecessarily unless they are severely tangled or rotted. Replace the old soil with a well-draining mix suitable for succulents, but do not compact it tightly. After repotting, resist the urge to water immediately. Let the plant remain dry for a few days so that any minor root trauma can heal. Watering too soon can introduce moisture into wounds, creating conditions for rot to develop. Snake plants are not plants that need constant attention or frequent upgrades. They thrive when left alone, slightly snug in their container and undisturbed, allowing their root system to grow strong and resilient over time. 10. Expecting rapid growth. Perhaps the most frequent error in snake plant care is impatience. Many people expect fast results, but snake plants are naturally slow growers, especially when kept indoors. Worrying about the absence of new leaves or rapid growth is unnecessary because slow growth is completely normal and often indicates that the plant is healthy and well cared for. Snake plants focus their energy below the surface first. They prioritize establishing a strong root system and maintaining firm, upright leaves before producing new shoots. Growth slows further in low light conditions, cooler temperatures, or during periods when the plant is resting. This is not a sign of failure, it is simply the natural growth cycle of the plant. Attempts to accelerate growth, whether by overwatering, heavy fertilization, or frequent repotting, usually backfire. Overwatering increases the risk of root rot. Excessive fertilizer can burn the roots and damage leaf structure, and constant disturbance from repotting stresses the plant, weakening it over time. Snake plants respond best to patience, not pressure. With stable conditions, consistent light, and proper watering habits, new growth will eventually appear, often unexpectedly, even after long periods of apparent dormancy. Experienced snake plant owners know that the plant's timeline is different from ours, and sudden growth bursts can occur after months of quiet stability. When you eliminate these common mistakes, overwatering, poor drainage, wrong soil, inadequate light, improper fertilization, temperature stress, neglected leaves, ignored warning signs, over-repotting, and impatience, snake plants truly live up to their reputation. They become elegant, low-maintenance, air-purifying companions that grow quietly and steadily in your home for years. Snake plants do not demand constant attention. They simply require respect, restraint, and understanding. Provide them with proper light, allow the soil to dry out between waterings, keep them in a stable temperature range, and leave them undisturbed. Do less, but do it correctly. By following these principles, your snake plant will grow tall, firm, and beautiful, proving that sometimes the healthiest growth comes from patience, consistency, and simplicity. Container gardening is one of the most rewarding ways to grow plants, whether you're working with limited space or simply prefer the flexibility of movable pots. But despite its many advantages, container gardening can come with its own set of challenges. A lot of beginners make mistakes that can lead to disappointing results or even plant failure. In this video, we're going to take a deep dive into 5 common mistakes you must never make when container gardening, and how to avoid them so that your plants grow healthy, vibrant, and thriving in their containers. We'll be focusing on key aspects like drainage, soil quality, watering, plant selection, and container size, all of which play a huge role in ensuring your success as a container gardener. So grab your favorite container and let's get started. It's time to take your container gardening game to the next level. 1. Using the wrong container size is one of the most crucial factors in the success of your container garden. If the container is too small or too large for your plant, it can create long-term issues that can stunt growth or lead to plant death. Understanding the right container size for your plants is essential for their health and vitality. Why size matters. The size of the container directly affects the plant's root development. A container that is too small doesn't allow the roots to expand, leading to root-bound plants that suffer from poor water absorption, nutrient uptake, and overall growth. This can manifest in signs like yellowing leaves, slow growth, and plants that seem to stop thriving despite proper care. In contrast, a container that is too large will retain excess moisture in the soil, leading to overwatering. This excess moisture may create an environment prone to root rot, especially in plants that don't require constant dampness. Essentially, your plant's roots are at the mercy of the container's size and its ability to allow proper drainage and airflow. The solution: aim for a container that is large enough to accommodate the plant's root system, but not so large that it leads to excess moisture retention. As a general guideline, small plants, such as herbs or small flowers, typically need containers that are around 6 to 12 inches in diameter. Medium plants like leafy greens, small tomatoes, or peppers thrive in containers 12 to 18 inches in diameter, or 3 to 5 gallon pots. Larger plants, such as larger tomatoes, peppers, and dwarf fruit trees, require a 5-gallon or larger container, preferably 18 to 24 inches wide. Trees and shrubs that are container grown should be placed in larger containers with plenty of room for root expansion, at least 20 gallons or more. The goal is to strike the right balance between the size of the root ball and the space available for growth. It's better to start with a container that's slightly too small than one that's too big, as this will allow the plant to establish its root system before expanding further. 2. Poor drainage. Poor drainage is one of the top causes of plant stress in container gardening. Without proper drainage, water can build up in the bottom of the pot, creating soggy conditions that can suffocate the roots, promote fungal diseases, and lead to root rot. Why drainage matters. In nature, plants have the ability to establish roots in the ground, where water naturally drains away. However, in containers, the plant's roots are restricted to the space within the pot. Without proper drainage, the soil will hold onto excess water, which creates a waterlogged environment that deprives the roots of oxygen. This leads to several issues. Root rot. The roots need to breathe to take up nutrients and water, and stagnant water can cause the roots to suffocate and decay. Fungal infections. The excess moisture promotes the growth of harmful fungi like Pythium, Fusarium, or Phytophthora, which can infect the roots and kill the plant. Stunted growth. Even if root rot doesn't set in, the excess moisture can slow down the plant's growth, causing it to struggle in absorbing nutrients effectively. Pest issues. Standing water in the bottom of a container can become a breeding ground for mosquitoes and other pests. The solution: ensuring your containers have proper drainage is one of the most important steps you can take to ensure your plants thrive. Follow these steps for optimal drainage. Check drainage holes. Ensure that your container has adequate drainage holes at the bottom. If the pot doesn't have any, drill a few at the bottom, making sure they're large enough for excess water to escape freely. Layering for extra drainage. Before adding soil, place a layer of gravel, small stones, or broken ceramic pieces at the bottom of the pot. This creates a drainage reservoir that ensures water flows freely through the soil without accumulating at the base. It also prevents the soil from compacting, which can reduce drainage. Use pot feet or risers. Elevating your container slightly off the ground can help encourage water flow through the drainage holes. You can use small pot feed or plant risers to keep the base of the container elevated. Consider self-watering containers. Self-watering containers often have a water reservoir at the bottom that allows for consistent moisture levels while preventing overwatering. These containers can be especially helpful for plants that prefer slightly moist soil but are prone to rot if overwatered. Soil selection. Along with ensuring your container has good drainage, make sure you're using a well-draining potting mix. Garden soil is too dense for containers and will hold on to too much water. Instead, use a potting mix designed specifically for containers. You can also add perlite, vermiculite, or sand to improve drainage and air circulation within the soil. 3. Using the wrong soil mix. When it comes to container gardening, choosing the right soil mix is one of the most crucial factors for plant health. Using garden soil or the wrong type of potting mix can lead to poor drainage, root compaction, and nutrient deficiencies, all of which can stunt plant growth and even kill them. Why soil matters? Soil in containers is fundamentally different from garden soil because it needs to provide everything the plant requires for growth in a confined space. Plants rely on the soil for nutrients, moisture retention, and oxygen. If the soil is too heavy, compact, or poorly draining, the roots cannot get the oxygen and nutrients they need to thrive. Garden soil often contains heavier particles, which can quickly become compacted in containers, leading to poor aeration, waterlogged conditions, and root rot. Additionally, garden soil doesn't have the appropriate nutrient balance to meet the specific needs of container plants, which require lightweight, well-draining, nutrient-rich soil to flourish. The solution: the best option for container gardening is a high-quality, well-draining potting mix. These mixes are designed to meet the specific needs of plants growing in confined spaces. They contain a combination of organic matter, peat moss, perlite, and sometimes vermiculite, which helps retain moisture while allowing for proper drainage and air circulation. Why choose potting mix? Light and fluffy texture. Potting mixes are lighter and fluffier than garden soil, preventing compaction and ensuring the roots have enough space to grow. Nutrient-rich. These mixes typically contain balanced nutrients tailored for container plants, which allows them to thrive without needing frequent fertilization. Improved drainage. Potting mixes are specially formulated to allow excess water to drain, which is critical to prevent root rot. When selecting potting mix, look for one designed for container gardening. There are also specialized mixes depending on your plant's needs, such as cactus and succulent mixes. These are made with sand and gravel to improve drainage, which is ideal for plants that don't like moisture retention. Vegetable and herb mixes. These are enriched with additional nutrients to support the rapid growth of vegetables and herbs which need more feeding. Acidic soil mixes. If you're growing plants that need acidic soil, such as blueberries, look for mixes that lower the pH, such as those containing peat moss. If you want to create a custom mix, you can combine regular potting mix with compost for added organic matter, or perlite to enhance drainage. For heavier feeding plants like tomatoes and peppers, you can add a slow-release fertilizer to the mix, ensuring that the plants have a steady supply of nutrients throughout the growing season. 4. Overwatering or underwatering. Watering is one of the most critical and often tricky aspects of container gardening. Too much water or too little can harm your plants, but finding that sweet spot can make all the difference. One of the most common mistakes is either overwatering or underwatering, and both can lead to plant stress and disease. Why watering matters. In container gardening, the soil dries out much faster than in the ground because containers have limited space and tend to heat up quicker. Overwatering leads to waterlogged soil, which suffocates the roots and promotes root rot. Conversely, underwatering causes the soil to dry out, leading to wilting leaves, stunted growth, and eventual plant death if left unchecked. Signs of overwatering: yellowing leaves. When plants are overwatered, the roots become waterlogged and cannot properly absorb nutrients, leading to yellowing of the lower leaves. Root rot. If the soil stays too wet for too long, the roots may begin to rot. You may notice a musty smell or blackened, mushy roots when you check the plant. Fungus or mold growth. Excess moisture encourages the growth of fungi and mold on the soil surface and around the base of the plant. Signs of underwatering: wilting. The most obvious sign of underwatering is wilting, especially in the hottest parts of the day. If the plant remains wilted even after watering, the root system is likely compromised. Crispy leaves. Dry leaves with a crispy texture, especially at the tips and edges, are a clear sign of underwatering. The plant is unable to access enough water to maintain hydration. Dry soil. If the soil feels dry and crumbly and doesn't clump together when you squeeze it, your plant may be suffering from underwatering. The solution: the key to avoiding both overwatering and underwatering is to establish a consistent watering routine and to check the moisture levels before watering. How to water properly. Check soil moisture. Stick your finger into the soil about an inch deep. If it feels dry, it's time to water. If it's still moist, it's time to wait. Hold off. For deep-rooted plants, you may need to check deeper than an inch to assess soil moisture. Water thoroughly. When you water, do so thoroughly so that the entire root system receives hydration. Water the base of the plant, not the leaves, to prevent fungal diseases. Ensure that excess water drains out of the bottom of the container. TQ, this is a sign that the water has reached the root system. Water consistently. It's important to water on a regular schedule, especially during the warmer months when containers dry out more quickly. If you're away often, consider using self-watering containers or water reservoirs to keep moisture consistent. Some plants may need daily watering in hot, dry conditions, while others, like succulents, only need to be watered once a week or so. Consider the plant's needs. Drought-tolerant plants. If you're growing succulents, cacti, or other drought-tolerant plants, they typically require less frequent watering. Allow the soil to dry out completely before watering again. Water-loving plants. On the other hand, plants like tomatoes, lettuce, and herbs will need more consistent moisture, particularly during the growing season. Other tips. Morning watering. Water your plants in the morning to allow the soil to dry out before evening. This reduces the risk of mildew and mold, which can thrive in damp, cool conditions. Check drainage. If your container doesn't have proper drainage, it can lead to water pooling at the bottom of the pot. Ensure your container has adequate drainage holes, and if needed, elevate the pot slightly to allow better airflow. 5. Not choosing the right plants for containers. One of the most common and impactful mistakes gardeners make is selecting plants that are not suitable for container gardening. Not every plant thrives in the restricted space and environmental conditions of a pot, and choosing the wrong plant can lead to stunted growth, poor health, and disappointing results. It's essential to consider the plant's needs, its growth habits, and its suitability for life in a confined container environment. Why plant selection matters. Plants have unique growth habits and environmental needs that must be met to thrive. When growing in containers, the soil volume is limited, the roots don't have as much space to spread, and moisture and nutrients can be more difficult to manage. Container gardening is also more vulnerable to temperature fluctuations, pests, and diseases, which may not affect plants growing in the ground to the same extent. In the right conditions, container gardening can work beautifully, but if the plant isn't suited to pots, it can suffer from stunted growth. Plants may become root-bound or lack the space to grow their root system fully, which limits nutrient and water absorption. Nutrient deficiencies. Limited soil means that plants may quickly use up the available nutrients, requiring more frequent fertilizing. If a plant is not well suited to the conditions of the container, it may not respond well to added nutrients. Watering issues. Some plants need more water than others, and some are more tolerant of dry conditions, so choosing the wrong plant can lead to either drought stress or root rot, especially in containers that retain water or dry out too quickly. The solution: how to choose the right plants for containers. To ensure your container garden thrives, here are several strategies for selecting the right plants. 1. Opt for compact varieties. If you're growing vegetables, flowers, or herbs, always look for dwarf, bush, or patio varieties that are bred specifically for container gardening. These plants typically have a smaller, more compact root system, making them better suited for the limited space in a container. For example, tomatoes. Instead of growing large varieties that need extensive root space, opt for determinate varieties, bush types, like Tiny Tim, Balcony, or Patio Princess, which are bred for container gardens and won't grow too large or tall. Cucumbers. Look for bush cucumbers or compact varieties like Bush Champion, which grow well in small spaces without needing sprawling vines. Peppers. For a great container pepper, Try mini bell or chili pepper, which grow well in pots and produce lots of fruits without taking up much room. 2. Consider growth habits and root space. When choosing plants for containers, it's important to consider how the plant grows and how much root space it needs. Deep-rooted plants. Certain plants like carrots, parsnips, and sunflowers require deep, expansive root systems. While these can grow in containers, they need a deeper pot, at least 12 inches deep, to give their roots ample space to stretch out. Shallow-rooted plants. On the other hand, herbs like basil, thyme, parsley, oregano, lettuce, and spinach have shallow roots and do well in smaller, more shallow containers. These plants need less root space and can thrive in smaller pots or window boxes. 3. Consider light and temperature requirements. The amount of light and heat a plant needs will dictate whether it will do well in a container on your balcony, patio, or windowsill. Full sun plants. Plants that need full sun require at least 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight per day. Examples include tomatoes, peppers, herbs like rosemary and thyme, and flowers like geraniums. These plants are great for spots that receive abundant sunlight throughout the day, such as rooftops, south-facing balconies, or patios. Partial shade plants. Some plants thrive in partial shade, meaning they do well with 3 to 6 hours of sunlight a day or dappled light. Leafy greens such as lettuce, spinach, and kale, along with herbs like mint, cilantro, and parsley, tend to grow best in partial shade. These plants are ideal for spots that receive indirect sunlight or for areas with some shading during the afternoon heat. Shade-loving plants. If you have areas with little to no direct sunlight, you can still grow plants. Ferns, begonias, and caladiums are shade-loving plants that thrive in low-light conditions, making them perfect for shady corners, patios, or balconies that are tucked away from direct sunlight. 4. Consider growth speed and maintenance. Some plants grow quickly and require frequent attention, e.g. tomatoes, peppers, or zucchini, while others, like herbs and lettuce, can be relatively low maintenance and grow more slowly. Consider how much time you want to devote to your container garden. Fast growers, radishes, lettuce, and herbs such as basil grow quickly and can be harvested in a matter of weeks. These are great options for gardeners looking for fast rewards and easy maintenance. Slow growers. Tomatoes, peppers, and eggplants often need more patience and care. They may take longer to mature, but they provide long-lasting yields and are a good choice if you're looking for more substantial crops. Low-maintenance plants. Herbs like mint, thyme, and rosemary are relatively easy to grow in containers and require minimal upkeep. They thrive with little attention, making them ideal for busy gardeners. 5. Check for disease resistance. Plants grown in containers are more susceptible to disease due to restricted airflow and moisture. Look for disease-resistant varieties, especially for vegetables. Many modern plant varieties are bred specifically for disease resistance, which is especially important in a confined environment like a container. For example, tomatoes. Choose varieties that are resistant to common diseases like blight or fusarium wilt. Better Boy and Celebrity are disease-resistant options that can be grown in containers. Peppers. Varieties like sweet banana pepper and bell peppers are less likely to suffer from common pests or diseases when grown in pots. Container-specific plant recommendations. For vegetables, bush tomatoes. Varieties like Patio Princess or Tiny Tim grow well in pots and are ideal for smaller spaces. Leafy greens, lettuce, spinach, and arugula grow well in shallow containers and can tolerate partial shade. Herbs. Most herbs, including basil, oregano, parsley, and mint, are excellent choices for container gardens. For flowers, petunias, geraniums, marigolds, and begonias are colorful, compact, and do well in containers. Fuchsias and impatiens are perfect for hanging baskets or pots that receive partial to full shade. For fruits, strawberries, ideal for containers, especially hanging baskets or strawberry pots. Dwarf fruit trees. Varieties like dwarf apples, lemons, and oranges are perfect for growing in larger pots and produce fruit in smaller spaces.